Warning, incoming game over. Warning, incoming game over.
I feel like I should be throwing my hat at the webcam right now. Leafs win. John Tavares hat trick. What more can you ask for? We're going to talk about it all here on Game Over Toronto. My name's Dominic Jones, and back with me, we got Lauren Williamson. Lauren, good to see you. Welcome back.
Thanks, buddy. I'm glad to be back. I'm glad to be well enough where I can actually be on here and not feel like I've been hit by a truck. So yeah, after a not so great week health-wise for the Leafs and for myself, they finish off the week strong, beating the Buffalo Sabres 5-3. Tale of two games from the first period to the second and third. We're going to talk all about that, and we're going to talk all about that with Dom here tonight. So thanks for having me on, buddy. Couldn't be happier to be back.
Yeah, it's great to be back, and to welcome you back. The Leafs did. They won one. They actually played okay. Like you said, tale of two games. First period a little dicey. Things didn't look too good, but the second and third period pretty convincing. The last one of these that I did, Zach's been holding down things for the last couple of games. The last one of these that I did was the Devils game, where they were outshot 38-14, I think, and somehow won 2-1. And that was one of those games where you're like, this team did not deserve to win. They somehow did it. This game, I think that was a deserved win. It was I think they earned this one. Whether or not they can sustainably win this way is a bigger question. But thus far into the season, first place in the Atlantic, they have been doing okay with it. So we'll see how this continues to play out as December, this sort of weird up and down, crazy busy month for everybody as well as for the Leafs, continues to play out. Lauren, let's just get your sort of overall impression of this game. How did you feel, when the final horn went? When you look back at the game, what was your overall feeling on this win?
Well, the game starts and ends the same way with a Chris Tanev penalty taken within 30 seconds of the horn. Right off the bat for Buffalo to essentially go up 2-0 within under 3 minutes. Not what we were hoping for. Obviously, not the start that we were hoping for. And I'm gonna go ahead and guess that Hildeby would like both of those goals back. It was, yeah. Buffalo. If you're asking me my gut reaction in the first 3 minutes of the game, Buffalo came into Toronto on like a 9-game losing streak, and then they scored 2 goals in the first three minutes. So yeah. I wasn't feeling super great about the game. Now, having said that, even though I have been under the weather this week, I have noticed that in the last couple of weeks, I believe it's up to 3 weeks now for Buffalo, where they have held the lead in multiple games, yeah, and then essentially let it walk out the door. And tonight, it gets the 10th tally of that record. It wasn't a great start for them to go down the way that they did. Historically, when the Leafs play Buffalo, they either play very well or they just get shelled. So I wasn't overly inspired in the first 5 minutes, but no, the second period definitely helped make up for that. Period make up for that.
Oh, certainly. Yeah. This was not a great start. And like you said, it felt like the sort of game that the Leafs typically lose, because it's the sort of game that you're supposed to win. And the Leafs have that tremendous ability to lose the games they're supposed to win.
Spectacularly.
Yeah, because this was, like you were saying, 9 in a row lost for Buffalo. They were coming off a back-to-back, less than 24 hours since the last game, a game which they lost in kind of a bland fashion. Like everything screamed, okay, they're gonna blow this somehow. And you watch those first 3 minutes, and Hildeby, his last game wasn't great. This start wasn't great, but they hunkered down. They powered through, and in the second period, things started to turn around. Things started to look up. Things started to be better, and a lot of that at first revolved around the new look third line, or perhaps it's maybe more of a reunited third line. I feel like these guys played together at some point earlier in the year. Max Domi between Nick Robertson and Bobby McMahon. They combined for 2 goals. Both Max Domi and Nick Robertson scored, and McMahon was a big part of both of those goals. What did you think of this new look third line? Is this something that's sustainable, or is this a line that just only works against bad teams?
It depends. Is Nick Robertson scratched the game before?
Ah.
because as we all have come to expect, when Nick Robertson is scratched, he usually comes out and plays very well the next game, and it turns out this game was no exception.
Mhm.
I think that this line has the ability to be good and to be one that can be sustainably good. However, I mean, a couple guys getting not the monkey off their back, but Max Domi definitely finally getting his first of the year. That whole shift, that line had in the first period, was maybe the only really good thing that happened in the entire first period for the Leafs. And so sometimes you just do need, one really strong shift to sort of change the tide of the game. It was towards the end of the period, 4 minutes and 15 seconds left to go. I think Bobby McMahon was knocking it out of the air, almost buried it, and then Domi holds the line and is able to finally bat it back in. And it's maybe second only in volume to the Nick Robertson goal earlier, in terms of volume, because he looked just delighted. As the game went on, that line didn't do overly well, even though Nick Robertson did end up scoring. There were moments of really good, but there's still a lot of things that I just don't trust that line to do. I don't.
No.
I mean, we had the lead, and every time that they were on the ice, I was doing one of these and sort of like it was like watching a horror movie as a kid and watching it through your fingers. So,
Right.
Can it be good? Sure, but I don't know if I trust it enough to use it full time. Now, speaking of mixed up lines, are we going to talk about how Berube decided to put Nylander, Matthews, and Marner together on a line?
Yeah, that was pretty fun. It didn't result in a whole lot tonight. If anything, it maybe allowed for the Tavares line to kind of step up and succeed where this line couldn't. But they had a few chances here. Matthews got robbed a couple of different times. He also missed the net on a play where he drew a penalty. But it was interesting that we're trying just putting the three guys together, the three, the three that were meant to be the face of the franchise and have been for the last little while, along with John Tavares. And it's not something we've seen before. It's always been you have to have at least one of them on another line. And we haven't seen the results yet, but I'd be intrigued to see it play out over a couple more games rather than just the one, sort of one and done, the way a lot of the Leafs lines tend to be. I don't know. What did you think of it?
It's certainly a competition of who can hold the puck longest. There's a lot of passing when they're all on together. And I do find that when the Leafs have so many people, or when there are more than two people on a line for the Leafs, in the top two lines specifically, where people really like to hold the puck, there ends up being a lot more passing than actual shooting. A power play would be a good example of that. I mean, the Leafs had 1, 2, 3, 5 power plays. They were able to capitalize on one, but a number of those power plays and first line shifts where those three guys were on the ice together. Lots and lots of pass. Oh, look, a pass, shot that goes wide to a pass. And it was, all those guys are very capable at carrying the puck, but I don't think that that's a great look long term.
No.
Like, just put Nyes there. Stop it. What are we doing? Oh my God.
Yeah. I mean, we've seen the Nyes works with Matthews plus whoever.
Sure.
Either Pacioretty or McMahon works with Tavares plus whoever. And then I think you just cycle through Nylander and Marner between those two lines and just see what's clicking on any given day. And then you have the multiple threats. Because it worked out in this game. And there's a temptation to say, the Tavares line did all the scoring in this game, so that can work going forward. I do think we have to bear in mind, and no disrespect intended to Buffalo Sabres fans or anything like that, this is not a good team that they played tonight. The Leafs should have won this game as they did. If they hadn't, it would be a huge deal. It'd be a huge story because this is 10 losses in a row for the Buffalo Sabres.
Yeah.
The Leafs fans, we like to think of ourselves as sort of the hard luck franchise of the NHL. Some of the things they were saying about the Buffalo Sabres on the broadcast tonight, no playoff appearances since 2013, the longest drought in history. we complain about not getting out of the first round. They haven't even gotten into the first round. Yeah. I've really hadn't stopped to think about how bad things have been for the Buffalo Sabres until this game. And now I'm really sort of feeling for Buffalo fans. But at the same time, you have to acknowledge, like, not a good team. The reason they're in those positions is because they're not a good team. And so anything that I want to take away from this game, I'm like, okay, it worked. That means we can try it again. But when we try it again against a better team and it doesn't work, yeah, exactly. When they try it against Dallas and if it doesn't work against Dallas, I think that's more indicative of whether or not this is a good idea to continue long term. A lot of things can work well against bad teams. The real challenge comes when you play Dallas, when you play Florida, when you play the good teams in the league, and that's when you can see if these ideas that they're cooking up behind the bench there are actually working.
Well, sure. And it's little things like that where we do go up against other teams and we see other teams' third lines that third line of whatever it ends up being permanently will be tested. Same thing with the fourth line. I mean, the Leafs had over 40 shots tonight. I'm pretty sure Ryan Reeves was maybe on the ice for one. It is no secret that the trade market is already heating up. I mean, we're essentially a week out from Christmas. And then it'll be the Four Nations tournament and there'll be a huge break there. And then bada bing, bada boom, it'll be trade deadline. So it'll be interesting to see what moves the Leafs end up making. There's no way that they go into the playoffs with the lineup the way that it is right now. There's simply no way. I don't know at this point what the pieces are that go, but you have to imagine that in the next couple of weeks, if they are not able to have some more consistency in terms of their goal scoring, not just from the top part of their lineup, from the bottom six, from like their back six as well, which is something where we've really struggled again this year, is getting any kind of offense from our defense pairings. I mean, we brought OEL in, and I'm not like, he's been very good. He's been very good, but I was expecting a little bit more of an offensive input.
Yeah,
from that.
Yeah, with OEL, it felt like there was about a 2-week span there at the beginning of the season where we were really talking about his offensive prowess with the team when they first tried him out on the power play.
Yep.
And since
he looked good.
Yeah, it looked good. But since then, he's kind of just sort of faded into the background. And part of that has been that his power play time has gone way, way, way down as they've tried the 5 forwards thing with the top unit, and then just putting Riley out there with the top unit if they don't go with 5 forwards. And as a result, he's kind of just sort of faded into the background. He's not doing anything wrong. He's not playing poorly. He's not at the risk of losing his spot in the lineup. Philippe Meyer's been playing games here and there, but he's not stealing anybody's job. And, it's still Meyer or Benoit that I think, if Yanni Hakanpää is ever ready to play, which is a big if at this point, I feel like those are the guys that will be worried. But there's been nothing from the defense. Riley will have a chance here and there. Tanev occasionally throws a puck on net and something might come from it. But they really don't get any offense, and they don't try to generate any offense from the back end. And part of that might be just the high-end talent up front that you're like, why bother? But you need that extra threat.
I do think that part of it is that, I mean, the Leafs not having any scoring from their back end is not a new thing. I do wonder if part of the reason why OEL's numbers have gone down is because as a whole, as a team, the people that have been here for a long time, I don't think that they think to consider trying to pass back to the blue line for like a clap bomb from the point, because we haven't done it, and we haven't really had anybody that is capable of doing it. Like OEL can do it, Tanev can do it, McCabe can do it, but OEL last year was unbelievable for Florida. I think he got like above 20 goals. Like he was very good, and he was very good on the power play. And the one thing that I will say, and that I did notice, was when the Leafs played that overtime game the other night. Who was that against? I haven't taken notes in days. So
against the Devils.
Against the Devils,
the goofy one.
Right. And do you recall who started that overtime unexpectedly?
I don't remember.
It was Matthews, Marner, and OEL.
Okay, yeah.
It was not Morgan Riley, which was thank God, because those three on three overtime makes me want to pull my eyeballs out of their sockets with my bare fingertips. Um, I do wonder if part of the reason why OEL's numbers have gone down is because the Leafs are not a team that generally have had to rely on it, so they
Mm-hmm.
don't think to consider it. And I think that as a result of that, OEL doesn't put himself in a position where
Mm.
that's his go-to move when he's on the blue
Mm.
line and is there, right?
Yeah.
Because it hasn't been they haven't been passing it to him, so he's not just going to stand there with his stick up in the air for forever, right? So I wonder if that has something to do with it. And
Yeah.
I now, having said that, I don't think that any trades that really happen are going to involve defense
No.
at this point. Like, that's been pretty good.
Yeah.
I do think it's going to be like a forward whenever it does happen.
Yeah, I mean, as we've said throughout the season, like this is the best version of the Leafs defense of the
Yeah.
Matthews era, and so we're left, we're left wondering, could they get more from it? But at the same time, you don't want to do anything to mess with it because it is
No.
providing something that has been sorely lacking in other seasons. And so you're sort of like, okay, let's leave that, and maybe if we need to get more scoring, it should come from the bottom six. Because again, they put up a fascinating graphic during the game tonight that showed the only goals from the bottom six in the month of December, at least players who were dressed tonight, were from Max Domi and Nick Robertson tonight. It is December 15th. We are halfway through the month. Christmas is 10 days away. Santa's going to traverse the globe in 9 days. Like, we are like that's too long to get any scoring, to go without any scoring from the bottom six.
The Leafs must miss David Kampf.
Yeah.
Because no, but I mean, I am sort of joking, but sort of not.
Yeah.
Like, he does so many things good defensively that it creates opportunities going the other way. And I love Steven Lorentz. He's been fabulous. I like Connor Dewar. He's been pretty good so far. Ryan Reeves, that can be part of the package that goes out. Like, I do think that even though David Kampf is known for his defense, I do think that his defensive prowess allows a lot more offense to go. And I just want David Kampf back.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit surprised that Steven Lorentz hasn't scored a bit more this year, if I'm being totally honest.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's not a goal scorer, but
yeah, he's not. And you do sort of look at the players he plays with. I mean, he's playing on that line with Ryan Reeves all the time.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
we all love it when Ryan Reeves can connect for something, when he can get a goal or do something. It's always fun. He seems like a fun guy, and that's why they keep him around. But he's not a threat to score on the ice. And you look at that line, and if a third of that line can't score, then they're not really generating anything. Then it's harder for the other two to score. And David Kampf, like you said, does a lot of things well. He can generate a little bit of offense, but again, it's not his thing. It's not his strong suit. Seeing Lorentz and Dewar together, those are two guys you think maybe there's something. Maybe that's where they should be generating a little bit more offense. Dewar scored something like 10 goals with Minnesota last year, and then he got here and he stopped scoring and hasn't scored like at all this year. And so you sort of wonder if there's a third piece of that line that could come in that could allow all three of them to thrive, while also maintaining the sort of toughness and grittiness that is expected of a fourth line. I don't know. It's an interesting sort of conundrum, something for them to think about as they go into the deadline in the new year, and all the fun questions they have.
Well, and Bobby McMahon's first game back from injury tonight as well, right? So working his way back from injury, and he's not somebody that won't score goals. Like, he's a big guy in the ice. He drove a lot of the play tonight. There was a lot of situations where he was like a main contributor to holding the zone and was very good. But the fact of the matter is, it's game 31, and Max Domi just had his first goal of the year, right?
Yeah.
He needs to be better.
Yes.
I'm sorry. I know he's been injured. He needs to be better. Nick Robertson, normally like 15 goal scorer. He's is that his fourth this year?
3, 4? Yeah, something like that.
It's not good enough for your third line. Like, no. You need a lot in the bottom six to go better. And I don't know if we have the pieces to be able to make a move that brings somebody back that can contribute in a similar way without taking away something else. So, I mean, like you said, I'm sure we're going to get into the second period here. I'm fascinated to see as we go into, the holiday season here and into the new year and into the Four Nations, and as that deadline gets closer and closer to the trade deadline, I'm really interested to see how this Leafs lineup ends up, when it comes around March, April 1st, what
Yeah,
it's going to look like. So,
absolutely. Well, let's move into the second period here. There's a lot to cover in this game. We've barely touched on the hat trick, and we will. Don't worry, we will get to it. We
yep.
will get to it in due course.
It's early, guys. Okay,
yeah.
it's 8:16. We're here earlier than usual.
Yeah, usually this is when the second period's sort of
Yeah.
midway through in the game. As we move into the second period, we want to remind you that there is lots of fun Game Over merchandise available. If you want to rep the Game Over Toronto or any of the other Game Over looks, you can order stuff from the GameOverNetwork.com. And right now there's a promotion going on for 15% off hoodies and beanies if you use the code GO Holidays, like Game Over Holidays, or like Go Holidays, as if we were cheering for the holidays, which we should, because who doesn't like the holidays?
Go holidays.
Go holidays indeed. TheGameOverNetwork.com, 15% off beanies and hoodies with the promo code Go Holidays. Yeah, Lauren is repping the Game Over Toronto merch here on the stream, so you can see what it looks like.
Very nice.
As we move into the second period, one of the conversations that we've had a lot this year has been about goaltending. It's been about goaltending, and it has largely been a positive conveation. Stolarz and Woll have been tremendous this year. Just
beautiful
amazing.
Boys.
The Leafs are in places in goaltending standings that they've never been. We've never had them rate so highly. And then, of course, 2 nights ago, 3 nights ago, I don't know, in game before last, Anthony Stolarz gets hurt, goes down. Joseph Woll has to come in. He holds things down. He wins that game. Starts the next game. I wouldn't put the last night's game on Joseph Woll. I don't think he was the reason they lost that game. But still, they don't get the win. And starting tonight, second half of the back-to-back, they've brought back Dennis Hildeby. I was a little surprised they went with him instead of Matt Murray. Matt Murray, who has been battling.
Isn't he still injured?
No, I can tell you firsthand. I saw him yesterday. He was he was playing.
That might be why you didn't play.
Yeah, he was playing for the Marlies yesterday. Came in. I know we're talking about the Leafs game, but let me just tell you, for people who aren't following the Marlies, yesterday's Marlies game was insane. Artur Akhtamov starts the game, has his worst game of the year, lets in 5 goals, gets pulled. It's 5-1 for the Bakersfield Condors over the Marlies.
Oh,
and then Alex Nylander, freshly back on the Marlies, gets a hat trick. And the Marlies come back and win 6-5 in overtime.
Wow.
With Matt Murray slamming the door shut on behalf of the Toronto Marlies. So
who got the winner? Who got the game winner?
Nylander was his was his final goal. Yeah, it was funny. There were 5 or 4 goal scorers for the Marlies. 3 of them were on the Leafs 2 weeks ago in Nylander, Grabenkin, and Steves. So I was a little surprised it wasn't Matt Murray. Although good for the Marlies that it wasn't. Dennis Hildeby gets the call. He played 2 games earlier. He played very, very well in the first game, very, very poorly in the second game. And I feel like we got a little bit of both of that in this game. He obviously does not start well. 3 goals in the first half of the game, 2 in the first period, 2 in the first couple of minutes. All of them from distance. They were all from beyond the face-off dot. No deflections, just shots that beat him. But then he turns it around and he shuts the door and he closes things down and he almost gets a goal. He almost gets a goal.
Damn you, JJ Paterka.
In the final minute of the game. What did you think of the Hildebeest's return in this one, Lauren?
I wouldn't mind if the Beast had to go back to his cave for a little bit. He had an abominable start. Hey, he had a rough start. I mean, letting in 3 goals in less than 10 minutes, less than ideal. Essentially every single goal, like you said, was from 15, 20 feet away. Yeah. He had a clear eye on all of them. I know that third goal, he was a little bit blocked, but man, he saw every single one and he just got beat.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Yeah. Like that first goal, the top shelf from Jack Quinn, it was literally like the first shot of the game. And I literally just need a save there. And it was a
Yeah.
rough way to start. And then my first note after all of those goals is just Hill to be way out of net because he ended up making a save and like spinning maybe like 10, 15 feet out of his net. It was very bizarre. He had a very rough start to the game.
Hmm.
But like you said, as the game went on and on, I did not actually fully unclench, but I did notice that he was a lot better in terms of his position. My only real worry was that he sits really far into his net, even when he's
Mm.
right at his post.
Hmm.
He sits right on the line. He doesn't really like use his positioning as well as I've seen him use his positioning in other games. He had, dare I, had a little bit of a Samsonov feel tonight in terms of his positioning, in terms of
Yeah.
his reads. Like there was a
Yeah.
lot of, I felt every time that they were going into the zone that like tinge of oh God, please no, that I haven't felt since last year. Tonight
Yeah.
was the first game so far this season where I've been like, oh God, oh, here it comes. And they're going to score. Now, like you said, they essentially are able to shut the door after that first period.
Hmm.
Um, Buffalo, like we said at the beginning of the stream, has done a very bad job of holding leads. So, I
Hmm.
mean, even though they went up essentially, 2-1 in the first period, I did have a little bit of belief that the Leafs were going to contribute to that ongoing awful statistic that they were going to drop another lead. So I'm glad that the Leafs were able to fulfill that fantasy of mine.
Yeah, and I feel like the Leafs gave him some more support as the game went on.
Hmm.
Like that, the Leafs were outshot badly in the first period,
Yeah,
but I'm trying to find what the final shots were. It was very
11 to
much
8.
yeah, but like that for the full game because it was very much
Oh,
tilted the other way.
yeah, I think
Because
I can pull it up.
yeah, because the Leafs wound up with over 40 shots by the end of the game, and they just sort of applied the pressure going the other way. I feel like the defense tightened up a little bit. There was a kind of a less than fun sequence fairly early on, which was the second line getting hemmed in for about 2 minutes there, or third line getting hemmed
Almost
in.
3.
Yeah, getting hemmed in for
Almost
close to
3.
3 minutes. Simon Benoit and Philippe Myers were out there for just way too long,
Yeah.
way too long, and that was sort of the downside of the Domi, Robertson, McMahon line because they
Saved
couldn't.
saved by the stash, those guys.
Yeah,
Uh,
really.
the final shots on goal ended up being 41 to 27.
Yeah.
The hits, the hits were even more tilted. The hits were 37 to 13 for the Leafs against
Yeah.
Buffalo.
Yeah, so clearly they figured it out as the game went on, and I think that took the pressure off Hildeby. And when the team is playing well in front of you, I think you can settle in a little bit more. You aren't so worried, and I feel like he played well as the Sabres tried to create some offense in the third period. He
Yeah.
made a couple of good saves at the
Timely
right moment,
saves.
timely saves. Yeah, so he did kind of settle in, but it took the rest of the team kind of coming together to support him, which, they are a team. That's what they're supposed to do. That is
Yep.
how this is supposed to work. But it was a little dicey, a little bit shaky there. I think safe to say Joe Wool gets the next start, but there's going to be another back-to-back coming up next weekend. And that leaves us with the question, do you put Hill to be back in there? Do you think about giving Matt Murray the call? Or do you think about going back-to-back with Joe Wool?
Or is Stoli going to be back by then?
I mean,
Right? Essentially,
that's the dream.
Yeah, he's available as of next Friday, the 20th.
Okay.
And then what is our?
Let's hope.
I'm just pulling up our thing here, the schedule for the next several games.
I
So
believe it's Wednesday.
Wednesday against the Stars, you
Yeah.
and Zach are streaming. Friday is the Sabres again. I'll be back here. Woohoo! And then the struggling Islanders on Saturday the
Yeah.
21st. Boy, do I love beating the Islanders. It would be really great if Anthony Stolarz could be back for that game. And then we have a December 23rd match against the Jets next Monday at 2 p.m. Ugh.
Yeah.
Ugh.
You gotta love the late
Gross.
December afternoon on a weekday game. They
Like,
do that every
on
year.
Boxing Day. Do it
Yeah.
on Boxing Day.
Yeah.
I guess they can't. The World Juniors will be on, and we don't want competition for that. Heaven
I s-
forbid.
I guess. And the World Juniors are like in a reasonable North American time zone. I mean, they're in our time zone, so
Yeah.
it's not like, oh, the game.
I guess
the game's in the morning. We can have a Leafs game in the evening. that would be more fun.
I mean, last Saturday we went to Scepter's game in the afternoon, and then we watched, and then I streamed after that at night. So
exactly, that's what I'm doing next Saturday. I got the Scepters in the afternoon, and then streaming against the Isles in the evening. So you could do two in one day. That's fun. If we can do it, surely the TSN team can do it. I don't see why not. But speaking of the Islanders, maybe that's the place to move into the third period, where we'll talk a little bit more about one John Tavares. But as we move into the third, of course, we will remind you to make sure you are subscribed to Game Over Toronto on YouTube. Make sure you're following Game Over on all the various social medias, at Game Over NHL on Twitter, at Game Over Network on Instagram. We're on Bluesky. We're on Facebook. Make sure you're following. Make sure you're subscribing to all the different Game Overs so you can check out the Game Over for all 7 Canadian teams. And of course, there's also Hyperdrive Hockey, the flagship show covering all things hockey, all leagues, all teams. Definitely check out good stuff across the network. John Tavares, he gets the hat trick. Could have had 2 hat tricks, could have had upwards of 6 goals in this game. He had some tremendous opportunities and was robbed several times, or missed the net, or just wasn't getting the bounces until he was. And I felt like we're in the last year of John Tavares's contract, and he's by no means done. He's by no means retiring. He's not even necessarily not coming back. I think, if anything, it's probably pretty likely that he does come back. But we're in the last year of the contract. He just had a great game. I think it's worth taking a moment and considering preemptively what his legacy as a Toronto Maple Leaf will be. Again, understanding that there is the rest of the season to play. A lot of it could be defined by what goes down in this year's postseason. But when I think about the happiest I've been as a Leafs fan in the last decade, there's like 3 moments that come to mind. Okay. 1, Austin Matthews first overall. Love it. Terrific.
That's pretty
Second, good. July 1st, 2018, John Tavares signs with the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Doesn't feel like it was that long ago.
I know. And third, John Tavares scores the overtime winner to take us out of the first round for the first and only time so far in this era. So obviously he's been a big part of it. But the other side of the coin is that goal to get us out of the first round of the playoffs is truly the high point, because nothing else has gone the Leafs' way in that time. They've won in the regular season. They've done great things in the regular season. They've played a lot of really close and really exciting playoff series, but all but one have gone the wrong way. Thinking about John, thinking about his time here, what is it that sort of springs to your mind initially when you think of Tavares as a Leaf?
Well, similarly, like I remember the year he came here. I remember that it was 3 days after that, I actually did this great big road trip with my then girlfriend, my now wife. I remember that morning. I remember it was like I had only just had cable TV for like a month. I remember watching the news. I remember being so excited. And I remember being so excited that we were going to have somebody else, that all of the offense wasn't going to just be on Austin Matthews. And I remember the excitement I felt knowing that he was coming here. I've been a big fan of his for a long time, even though he was on the Islanders. Yeah. And so I was overjoyed. And then, like you said, when he gets the series winner a couple years ago, so many of the Leafs playoff successes have sort of hinged on Tavares. I mean, if we think back to the Montreal series, I think we're all in agreement that if that injury doesn't happen in essentially the first game, that series probably goes very differently. Now it's easy to look back and have revisionist history.
Yeah. And I mean,
but it feels like when things go well for John, things are going well for the team. Through this whole stretch in the last month and a half essentially where so many of our guys were out for, a number at once and then only a couple, and the mainstayers were out. He really, even though he doesn't have the captaincy anymore, he really sort of put the team on his back and didn't let the fact that so many of their forwards are out make them out for the games. He at no point has taken his foot off the gas. He's been phenomenal in the face-off circle pretty much the entirety of his career here. At very few points have there ever been moments where John is not at his best, or when he's contributing to the downfall of the team or of the losses. Even in games where they're out or where they're losing, he's still playing well. And we were all sort of expecting the contract to age poorly. It hasn't aged great. Hasn't aged as poorly as it could have? Absolutely not. Going into this last year, I think we were all pretty convinced that, like, at some point, whether it's July 1st or whether it's before that the Leafs are going to re-sign John Tavares. Based on how he's playing right now, you can't let him go to free agency because someone else will pay him more money. But I do still think that he's going to be back because, man, this is where his family is. His wife and kids, like his kids were all born here. He's finally been able to come home. Like, I don't see him turning around and all of a sudden going to another city because the Leafs aren't going to offer him something. I think that he is contributing enough that it is justified for him to resign here, as opposed to, if we look at another 91 that played for a team in blue and white that did not get a contract renewal at the end of his last year, in Steven Stamkos. He has gone to Nashville and his play has fallen off a cliff. And I just don't see that happening to John the way that it has for Steven. Now, having said that, if next year, all of a sudden he turns into a ghost of himself, well, maybe we can have the conversation then. But the way that it is right now, that my youngest cat's middle name is Jonathan because it was the day that we got him when they scored that overtime winner and got us into the second round. He, regardless of what happens, he came here out of free agency. It was one of the very few big moves that happened in free agency in recent memory, really. And he's come here and really made an impression on the team and left his mark. And that's by doing all the little things right, being great in the faceoff dot, never really being out of the fight, always. And, he's 36 and dangled Dylan Cousins' jock off earlier. Golly, that was just vintage.
That was not even one of the ones he scored on. that was one of his misses. That was one of the 4 times.
That's not even part of the hat trick.
Yeah, one of the other 4 times he could have scored in this game. You mentioned the Montreal series. I was saying, the happiest I've been as a Leafs fan in the last 10 years. Probably when you think of the worst moments as a Leafs fan, that's got to be right near the top. Just because one, it was just so scary. It was that was one of those moments where you're like, can we play the rest of this game? Is that okay? Is that the right thing to do? And if he's in that series, again, like you said, don't do that.
Don't fall down that hole, man.
It's tough. It's tough not to think of it. But yeah, and like I said, has the contract aged poorly? Yes. Part of that is the world that we got stuck with after the deal. The bet that Kyle Dubas made was that the salary cap would continue going up and up and up and up and up, and instead it stayed pretty much flat for 4 years because of COVID, and nobody could see that coming. Nobody could honestly say that we knew that was going to happen, or that
he rolled the dice too soon. But there was no way at the time when that contract was signed we could have known that. There was nothing to indicate on July 1st of 2018 that 2 years later, there would be no Stanley Cup in mid-May.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm sure there's some infectious disease specialist sitting around going, "Oh, I was warning people back then." I'm like, yeah, but you didn't know for sure. Nobody knew for sure at that time, and so I almost wonder if it's worth making a smaller scale version of that bet again with him, in that you might pay to keep him a little bit more than you think he's worth at this moment in time, with the understanding that the cap is most likely, knock on wood, going to go up and up and up and up. And that contract, if you sign him for 3 years or whatever, to sort of take him right up to sort of approximate retirement time, will be all right. It won't feel super bad in its final year the way, sometimes some of these, the core four contracts have felt like a real albatross for this team and their ability to do things like get a third line center. Get quality defense in. Like these were all things that they have been missing. They kind of got lucky with the goaltending this year, where you have Woll and Stolarz, collectively making less than $4 million, collectively making less than $5 million. Like normally you'd think you'd have to pay much more for that kind of quality goaltending, and those contracts feel like an albatross because the cap just stayed the same.
But thank God we didn't pay Jeremy Swayman $9.5 million right now. Because does that not look good?
Not a great start.
I mean, the reality is the cap is supposed to jump up like $8 million, $9 million this year, which is going to be great. Even if John Tavares signs for half of his current contract, that would be a massive gain. Yeah. Now, having said that, we need to give Matthew Nyes a chunk of money and just hand him a blank check. I don't care what you pay him. It's been nice that we haven't been talking about the Marner contract. That will inevitably, that talk will spice up in the next couple of weeks and months, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. But even in that, like, there's still, with that contract coming off, I do think he's going to stay. I think he'll probably stay for 5.5, 6.5. Yeah. He'll make less than Morgan Rielly will. He may make what Patrick Marleau made when they traded for him. Mm-hmm. I would be fine with that because he is still contributing in a lot of ways. He's still like a 25 goal scorer, man. Like there has not been a noticeable drop off in his game except in his speed, but he's never been fast. No. And now he's not being asked to play a fast role. He's down with Max Pacioretty, who again, about as fast as a donkey in Red Dead Redemption. Not very quick, but those two guys together, if you can get another player to play with them that will be able to move the game at their speed, there's no reason to not re-sign him. Are you crazy? And I don't want him going somewhere else. I don't want him going, I don't want to see him in a Penguins uniform.
Just go sign with Kyle Dubas again. Hang out with Dubas and Spezza.
Really quickly, thank you, Luke Venables in the chat. JT got the belt tonight.
Very nice.
Very nicely done.
And very well deserved.
Very well deserved.
Yeah, and ultimately, I think I want Tavares to stick around because I want him to be able to cement like a truly positive legacy with the Leafs. Yeah, a lot of things. Again, this specific contract, it ends this year. Its legacy now depends on how things go in this postseason, and even still, you might look at it as maybe a bit of a missed opportunity with not that much success over the 7 years, but. Let him stick around. Let him stick around. Let him hopefully.
This season, man, they could go on a run.
Yeah. Let it, and if it's not this year, maybe let it be next year. Like let him be. He should be a part of it. He chose to come here. He wants to be a part of it. We all saw his childhood picture with his pajamas and all that stuff. Like let's. Hopefully he can be part of the team that finally does it and cement his legacy that way. And, one day soon, him and Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner and Willie Nylander and Morgan Rielly will all be hanging. We'll all have, banners hanging from the rafters at Scotiabank Arena because they were part of the team that did it. Exactly. All right, let's move into let's move into our overtime period here. Fire off if you got questions or comments for us in the chat. There's been a lot of talk here. We might just start reading people's thoughts on John Tavares and his legacy in a moment here. But as we move into overtime, I want to remind you, if you want to go sort of the extra mile in supporting Game Over and make like a financial contribution, you can do so by supporting on Patreon. Search for Game Over on Patreon. There's tons of cool perks that you can get there. Link is in the description. And of course, there's also LaRouche, which is a Quebec-based crowdfunding opportunity. And if we reach our goal of $15,000, that will unlock some government funding from the Quebec government. So if you're interested in supporting that way, links are in the description. All right, let's see what's going on in the chat. There's been a lot of chat about John Tavares. Let's see what people have been saying here. Matt Wilkins says, if Tavares takes a hometown discount, his legacy will be rock solid. If he prices himself out of an extension, I think the memory will be pretty mixed. There's something to be said for that. It's not a perfect one-to-one comparison, but Matt Sundin not waiving his no trade clause when the team needed to get younger, get assets in, him sort of sticking out and then signing in Vancouver and the Leafs getting nothing out of that. That did sour that relationship for a while there. And it's only been in recent years where it started to be repaired. And I think a lot has been done with that book that he's that he's written and him being around the team a lot more with the Sweden trip and everything last year. Like all of a sudden we're starting to get back to the really, really warm feelings with Matt Sundin. It's not that there were never that there weren't warm feelings, but the really warm feelings because he didn't do right by the team in those final months of his tenure here, even though you can understand him wanting to stick around and see it through to the end. So yeah, perhaps the hometown discount, like you were saying, Lauren, less than Morgan Riley, I think is the target. Less than Morgan Riley.
I do think he's gonna take, like, I think he's going to be reasonable about it. I think that he knows what it's like to not be liked in a city where he's previously played because he left somewhere. I don't think that that's going to happen here. Like, I'm sorry, the Islanders are not good enough right now for him to justify going back.
Yeah.
I don't know how many other places he would want to go to play. Like, you're not, even if you think about, okay, well, maybe he wants to stay somewhere close. Okay, well, he doesn't want to go to the Sens. They don't have the money to afford him. And he wouldn't fit there. He's not going to go to Detroit. He's not going to go to Buffalo. Like, the next closest team after that is like Columbus or Montreal. And I don't think he's going to go to either of those teams either. Like, I think he's going to be completely reasonable. I'm sure it's going to be a higher price than we would all like, right? In a perfect world, he takes $1 million and stays with the team because he's already made his money. But if he makes 5.5 for the next 3 or 4, I'm totally fine with that, especially given his play.
Yeah, the dream is he does the Jason Spezza, but that's not happening. He's not the same point as Jason Spezza was in his career. He's still got more to give. Luke Venable says, if anybody is going to take a team-friendly deal, it's JT. I don't expect him to, but he's my last hope. Nobody has taken a team-friendly deal on the Leafs in quite some time. David W says, I hope the Leafs let Tavares walk if they don't make it to the 2025 conference final. Ditto for Marner. Neither Tavares or Marner has been with the Leafs has been consistent enough a playoff performer with the Leafs to justify a new contract.
Wow.
Damn.
Fighting words.
Yeah, them's fighting
words.
Again, I will point out Tavares is the one who scored the goal to push them into the next round. He set up Nyes to win Game 5 last year. Like, he has been there in the big moments, and as we talked about with the Montreal series, we missed him in the other ones. So I think Tavares has been a more consistent playoff performer than he sometimes gets credit for. Everyone looks at Willie because Willie's the one who does get the flashy goals, but Tavares has been there in the moments.
Yeah. William Nylander has scored lots of playoff points, lots of big moments by William Nylander. Yeah. I am of a very controversial opinion in that I do think that the Leafs need to trade Mitch Marner.
Yeah.
Even now.
Oh, all right.
Even now.
All right.
I think that if you go down a list of right wingers in the league that make less money than him that I would rather have, the list continues to grow. Just saying.
Oh, Mitch. Yeah. It's
I love Mitch Marner, man. I do. He's a phenomenal player. And he's great. And he's special. And he can do these amazing things on the puck. And sometimes I wish he would just be more consistent and not have to make everything a movie star moment.
Yeah. I will say, for Mitch in this contract year, I think part of the reason we're not talking about the contract as much as we have with the other guys is because he hasn't really forced our hand. He's played well. Yep. He's played really, really well, but he hasn't. He
was great while all those guys were sick. Yeah. He was fabulous.
But he hasn't consistently been outstanding the way that Nylander last year forced the matter by being lights out, unstoppable, incredible, and so, to the point where Treliving just sort of had to go, "Yep, here you go, here's your contract, enjoy, don't spend it all in one place."
Yeah.
Music for Al says Tavares will stay as long as he feels he is still contributing. I think that's fair. He does seem to be pretty team friendly or team focused on this team, and if as long as he feels he has a part to play, I think he'll stick around, much in the same way, again, someone like Jason Spezza did. I think Spezza realized after his last season that his usefulness was coming to a close, and that's why he said to Dubas, "Can you give me a job in the front office instead?"
Yeah.
Matt Wilkins in the chat says, "The blasphemy from Lauren, shocking."
Oh, come on, Matt. That's not the most controversial thing I've said on this show. You watched this for long enough.
Ty Smith, Toronto will regret trading Marner. We'll see. We'll see what happens. There's a lot of season left to go. A lot of time to make these decisions before the trade deadline, and then before July 1st when we get there.
I have my Chaos Fairy shoes on right now. That's what it is.
Incredible. But I think that's where we will leave things for tonight. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Game Over will be back on Wednesday. Zach will be here to discuss the Stars game. I'm going to try and jump on and join him for that. And we'll have some fun. Hopefully the Leafs play a little better and get another great result like this one. Lauren, if people want to keep up with you between shows, what's the best way they can do that?
You can find me on Bluesky and its evil twin sibling at Lauren in the Six. That is the best way to get a hold of me. I'm active on both of those communities, so go ahead and check that out. Where can everybody find you, Dom?
You can follow me at Dominic J25 on all the various social medias, the evil twin of Bluesky, and Instagram. And if you want to talk some Star Wars, if you're watching Skeleton Crew and you want to get in depth in the breakdowns of those, tune into the Star Wars Underworld podcast every week. You can find us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all that. Same places that you can find Game Over Toronto. You can subscribe on YouTube to never miss a live stream. You can also subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts to make sure that you can listen if you cannot tune in live, or if you just don't want to watch us, or don't want to watch our faces and you just want to hear our voices instead. Yeah,
I wouldn't want to watch my face either.
I wouldn't want to watch my face either. So understandable if you just want to hear our lovely voices. But do tune in again. We'll be back, as we said, for more Leafs hockey. Another busy week coming up, and hopefully coming away with another winning record for the Maple Leafs. We will see everybody next time.